Thank you. Morning, guys.
Morning.
Morning.
I don't know, have you met Glenn and Jeanette before?
Good morning, E. Yes, I think I've met E once before.
Right.
Yes.
Right. He's the guy running the Eon Auto, the app we've talked about a little bit before, Jeanette, that he's put together.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right. So let's get started here. I'm going to share this screen. We're going to talk about empowering your team. Get to see my dog with his drinking problem first. Ozzy.
Yikes.
I wonder if my dog would bring me vodka.
Yeah.
Sounds like
I
a
don't
pretty
even
good dog to me.
vodka. So this is going to be a very quick program. It's about, we'll do all of this in less than 30 minutes here. I thank all of you for being involved in your interest in the program. This was recorded and will be distributed to many others, so be aware of that. I start off with kind of, 3 steps to empowerment. I've built this program around DISC, but the background of my teaching and what I've done in the past in the psychology areas and sociologies and everything else, I bring all of that material forward. In the end, though, I think self-discipline matters. We can come up with all kinds of ways and everything else, but this is about teaching people how to have self-discipline and control of what they want to do and the choices they make in their lives around communications. So let's jump into kind of a guy named Socrates that said, know thyself. Well, I'll read this out to you. The more you understand your communication style, the more you will understand how your communication is impacting others. Too often we have our own view of what our world is, and we think everybody else is seeing it through our eyes, when the reality is they're not. And I'll give you some examples of that as we go through the DISC profiles and talk about what those look like. So step one. Step one is an individual assessment for the DISC and self-motivator. Several of you have taken it before, and it reproduces a 50-page report. Within that report, there's extensive information for people to read through, but typically, most people that get involved in the program, when we introduce it, say you have 10 employees, probably 20% of them will actually read through the report. The other 80% will, like most of us, will just brief things and not look that closely at it. So it's a great report. It gives out super information, takes about 25 minutes to complete. So when you start to think of how much time is my staff committing to doing this kind of program, it starts off in step one with 25 minutes to do an assessment. The return for that, or the outcome of that, of course, is that they get the 50-page report. So that gives them a lot of inside inspection. Here's an example of what they get back as just, example of a DISC profile. And I'll quickly go through what DISC is for everybody on the call to make sure you're familiar. In this particular person's example, you see that their adapted style is very low in the D in comparison to their S, I, and C. The D is their dominant quadrant, right? So the things, when we go swimming and we say, let's go swimming, and the Ds are already in the water. They make quick decisions, they're results based, and they want to know they aren't very concerned about people as much as they are getting their tasks done. They're good leaders in that way, but they aren't necessarily people sensitive all the time. In the I situation, same kind of skill sets in terms of being aggressive, getting things done, making decisions, but certainly bring another element in, which is a higher degree of socialization. So they're, again, what we would call extroverted people, both the D and the I. They're not afraid to speak up. They're going to be the ones that say, yeah, I'll volunteer, I'm in, especially there's a social element. Those in the S and C category, now we're talking about introverted. Okay, but the S category is also very interested in the social element. So when we say, let's go swimming, the S is going, yay, let's go swimming, everybody, let's have some fun. You all go ahead and I'll come in last. The I will say, yeah, let's go swimming, come on, everybody, and want to bring them along. They'll still go in first. The D won't say anything to anybody. They just go. The C, they're going to look at the situation and go, what do we got here? Well, is there sharks in the water? Is it safe? Is there glass on the bottom? The C will be very close, very sure to make sure things are in line and it's safe before they're going to say, let's go swimming. And that's the nature of where we, when we talk about DISC, individuals' personalities, right, are maybe stronger in one area or whatever, but it does not mean that we can't move from one area to the other and change the way we function. It's just we kind of lean on our natural style oftentimes, especially when we're under stress and things like that. And knowing our natural style, it gives us the ability to use that natural style to grow ourselves. That's really the first step of just taking the report and having people look through it and analyze. The second step, and I guess I should include, there's also a motivational piece in the assessment, right, in step 1. Step 2, things get pretty interesting. Step 2, I do an individual interview with every participant. So if you have 10 people in your company, all 10 of them will get an interview for a half hour with Coach Hess. Things get uncovered in these interviews that are quite interesting. I'm aware of the work environment by this time, so we're starting to figure out how that person's DISC fits into their work world, where they have challenges, possibly in what they're doing in their work. Why were those challenges there? And I ask those kind of tough questions as a coach as we go through it. But the main thing I do is share the team's profile with each person on that call. And you can see on the screen the example of one particular group that I did this work with, and this is their profile. What's interesting when we look at DISC and we look at who we hire and how we hire people, we have a tendency oftentimes to hire like ourselves. And you can see in this particular graph, or a scatter graph here, that this is an example of 14 people, both their natural and adapted style plotted on it, but there's nobody really in the D quadrant, right? And so what kind of things would be challenged for this business with those, that kind of makeup of profiles? Well, getting things done sometimes isn't at the top of their priority. Having fun is. The I's love to have fun. Let's have a good time. I mean, think of it this way. One of the workshop exercises when you have a large group is you can separate them into each of their categories, right? So let's try to identify which category you are real quick. Let me just give you a poll. I think I can bring up a poll here. Yeah. Take a look at this and see which statement best describes you. Take a read through and pick one of the 4, and then we'll share those. Number 1's I'm an action-oriented person who is most comfortable when in charge. 2's I'm a people person. 3's I'm calm, not clam, that's calm, misspell. Glad I was reading it out. I'm calm and cool under pressure. And then the last one, I like to study lots of information. Which one you picking? I got 1 in so far. All right.
What if you're part of 2 different ones?
Yeah, I'm asking you to pick the dominant, but yeah, it's tough. That's exactly what happens when you do the analysis, right, or the assessment, is it comes back and you may have 2 that are exactly equal. So the end of the polling, there's the results. Somebody picked a couple. Nobody said they were a D. So that's a D, number 1. Number 2 is an I. Number 3 is an S. And number 4 is a C. Very quick test, right? Another way to find out where people are is you simply ask them the question, how was your weekend? And if it's loud, I had a great weekend, and nothing else, they're a D. If it's loud, hey, I had a great weekend, went out swimming with my family, went fishing, they're going to be an I. If it's hey, yeah, I had a good weekend, went with the family, and they're quiet. Well, they brought the social, they're an S. And then the next piece, of course, is the C, which would be quiet and results based or careful, or we had a very safe weekend, we avoided COVID or whatever, right? That would be the main kind of element. So that way, when you hear that, you can distinguish just by one question where somebody is in their quadrant. What advantage is there by having that? The advantage is that now you know how to communicate to them if you do a little bit of homework and a little bit of exercise in Empower Your Team program with Coach Hess. So when you notice that there's a trend in your office or in your group that you work with, you want to take a look at what kind of activities and tasks are going on. And then possibly if you have a hiring and growth plan, where do we want to maybe balance this out? Typically, society has about an equal number of people in each of these categories. It's not imbalanced in a big way. All right, let's step on to step 3. So after we've done all of that analysis and put everybody, kind of did the interview with them, made sure they understand where they were, do a little self-inspection, things that come out are the way to communicate to somebody, the way you like to communicate to yourself. And when I go through the report in that whole step 2, what I'm leading them to is the workshop. And what I have them do is they have 7 areas in their report where I have them pick out a couple of spots, a couple of things out of the, that fit to them that they think are really important. I'm sorry, I was just going to show you some, but I mean, things that say this person doesn't like to be talked down to. Well, maybe that's the way you really feel, and you feel that came out in your report. So you put that in your captured list of the top 7. So what I do in the workshop is the first thing is we teach the WIFLE. So on the, if it's a multi-day workshop, whatever, and the WIFLE is what I feel like expressing. And so everybody gets included and has an opportunity to say what they feel like expressing on the first day of the workshop. Typically they're nervous, they're anxious, they feel kind of uncomfortable about somebody looking into their lives, and doing self-inspection isn't always easy. Those kind of things come out in the first WIFLE. And my job as the leader is to get everybody comfort and ease and so on in the workshop. The reason I teach the WIFLE the first day is because the second day, they take their top items that fit with them out of their profile, that they want other people in their office or who they work with to know about them, that they think they may not know about them. Well, that's when the aha moments start up and what we call BFOs, blinding flashes of the obvious. Because on the second day, when they read out the WIFLE and say things like, I'm easily distracted, and when you come by my desk and ask me a question, it takes me 10 minutes to get back to work. And so you recognize that somebody's easily distracted because they describe that in their WIFLE, and people are going, oh, I didn't know that. I always come by and say something to you or bug you or do whatever. And so it's slowing her down in her work. And so that kind of, and on and on. Each time people share these things that goes around, everybody's light bulbs are clicking off, and how to be a better team, which really makes it fun. So that's first step, kind of in the step 3. When you get to workshop, you do the WIFLE type thing. The other things I start with, is we start to practice. I give them any object. Here's an object, an eraser. All right, describe this as a D. Describe it as a C. And then everybody goes back and forth and they have to describe what it is as if you are one of those. So you have to take yourself out and role play, and you practice that. So you know that this, as an eraser, is going to be, for a C, it's going to be a functional item, right? The D may say, oh, it's going to take away all the words and something else that people get to see on a board. However, the C, the I might be like that. Each one would have a different description of it. And if you practice it, just think about how would it somebody else, you're taking yourself out. It teaches you what those categories or those profiles are going to talk and think like. All right, so that's kind of first step. You practice that till they get that. And the second step I get on, the workshop is now we go into role playing and actual practicing. So how do you turn it from an internal situation into an external situation? Internally, That's what we've been working on up to this point. I kind of make that, okay, now let's think about what happens in your job. So I have them write out, what's your typical script? What do you do in your job? If you're a customer service, what's the most common thing you say, and how do you, on what type of media? Is it email? Is it phone? Is it whatever? Typically it was phone for a lot of people, but it can be email. And so by recognizing this is what I say to people in order to do my job, sales, of course, right on the money. When you're a salesperson, you know, how are you going to sell? Well, I have them write out what they typically are going, how they're going to describe themselves in a selling situation or a customer service or whatever. Once they've written that script out, kind of review that, share that with each other, make sure that, you know, we kind of have what's right there. Then I have them go into an exercise that says, now we're going to write it in 4 ways. So I bring back the report, I bring back the information of the emotional language connected to each of the 4 quadrants, right? The D is going to feel emotionally different about a situation you're talking to them about in terms of buying into your product or your service or whatever it might be than a S. And so by writing your script out now in a D's language, in an S's language, in a C's language, in an I language, now you practice. The next level, once you've got them written out, now we put in role model play in the workshop where people will say, hey, how was your weekend? And they give them a response. And now you start the process, the response they're gonna have to pick up on. Was it low, was it quiet, or was it loud? Was it social, or was it not? And from there, you then practice pulling in your specific quadrant of the script that you've got built for that, or start to work on. Obviously, reading from script isn't the beautiful way to sell or do your work, but in terms of getting to a point where you can practice and get familiar with how you're going to adjust your language to speak in somebody else's lingo is very powerful. And so that's the whole concept of the step 3, you know, and then at the end, I mean, people have all of a sudden time to practice in their office. What you want to do is then a week from there, I send them all an email basically saying, how's it going? Have you come up with, because typically BFOs are things you learn in workshops. You don't necessarily, you know, you put the work on the shelf and you forget about it and don't change your ways. We have a tendency to be very, very much like that. If I had all of you stand up in a room, you know, and I said, okay, change something on your clothing and look at your partner, turn your backs, change 5 things, turn your back and look at each other again, change 5 more things, turn your back, you know, and then come back and look and can you identify 10 things? And then if I said, all right, everyone, sit down and take your seat now. All right, and let's talk about the exercise. 90% of people will start to put themselves back together before they ever sit down because they want to get back to their comfort zone. It's no different than taking a workshop, learning a workshop and doing it unless you put it into practice. So you have to have follow-up to these workshops to truly ingrain and institute the learning. Kind of fun stuff, you know, when people start to relate, and it's the emotional piece. Remember that people buy 80% of the time off an emotional piece, not a logical piece. So getting them to justify their logic through emotion for a D, oh my, they're going to buy fast, or they're going to join in fast, or they're going to feel good about the communication that you're having with them. So that's kind of an overview of the workshop. I'll give you a little bit on customer feedback. I've done this program with Matt Schoenberg in State Farm, and this is the kind of feedback I got from one of the managers. As I have learned to be able to determine what kind of person I am dealing with and to cater my conversations to their type. So that was a very powerful kind of feedback comment. I got, you know, high ratings, over 9 out of 10 for everybody there. But this is one example. Now, Matt, this is his comment. This program brought our team together by learning how we communicate, both as a team and with our customers. Team walked away with all smiles and were energized, you know, which I bring a high degree of energy when I bring these programs to people. I make sure every session opens up with a stretch. So I do a little bit of, you know, up and down and lean over, a little bit of Jack LaLanne stuff, get everybody's mind going physically. Then I have a whiffle. And at the end of it all, once we've done the whole lesson in the course, which is very much interactive. At the end, we do a whoosh. And a whoosh is we whoosh it out all of the new learning or all the old learning and whoosh in the new that we put in place. And we do a big whoosh, and everybody has a blast with those. So I want to show you real quickly a video from Matt. Matt gave me a 2-minute testimonial on this program to show you what we've got here. So give me 1 second to do some screen switching. I think this will be coming up in just a second here.
Hey Matt, it's good to see you. Coach Hess here. I had the opportunity to work with your team on the Empower Your Team program. How'd that go?
You know, Coach, we had a fantastic time with you. Brought you in to a 3-day workshop. I had, I think it was 17 of my team members go through the DISC profile. And then one part that I absolutely loved is you interviewed each and every one of my team members individually, gave them a little over a half hour, and got to drill down on who they were as individuals. And then you came in for the workshop, which was just spot on because it brought everyone together and really opened up how we communicate with each other, right? How we work as a team, why someone on my team drove me a little crazy, and now I understand it's not me, it's really them. They have the issue, right? But just learning how to communicate with each other was a huge benefit. And then towards the end of the program, the way you take it from how do we communicate as a team to work better, but how do we take that same information and then communicate with our end user, our customer? So how can we communicate better with our customers in order to help them get where they need to go, and how we can communicate with them to be successful with what we do.
That's great, Matt. Why should others do this?
I think if you're looking for, so Coach Hess comes in here, he's got a ton of energy. He's got some really fun things that he likes to talk about, his whiffles and whooshes and whatnot. But if you're looking for something that's going to build your team, if you're looking for something that's going to energize your team, this is just a phenomenal workshop. So high energy, you learn a ton, your team's gonna walk away, all smiles, and they're gonna have a different respect and a different way to communicate. And then how do you help the end user at the end of the day? So just a tremendous, tremendous program.
All right, well, thank you very much, Matt. Appreciate the time.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, there's Matt. Yeah, he did a good job for me, and I really appreciated that. So that gives you an idea of the program. I think I still want to share one slide with you. Bear with me for a second as I find my way around multiple screens. All right. So anyway, I guess, in conclusion, I mean, I'm up to doing these programs. I've got a whole handout that, can guide you through how to set it up with it. I'm pricing it relative to the number of people in a team. And then of course I give 100% guarantee that the program is successful. And if it isn't successful and anybody doesn't feel like they get what the value is they put into it, then I give them their money back without a question. And I just have 100% confidence in what I'm bringing forward here, that everybody can gain a lot and grow a lot through it. So I'm excited about the opportunity to get the program out to others. If you know of people that fit in that category that have, four employees or more, I think you really need to have that. This is a great thing for them to grow. And right now with, we're suffering through, I mean, think of what the D's and C's, the D's and C folks aren't having a real tough time with the virus as much, but the I's and the S's, who are highly social in those aspects of all of our combination, we're having a hard time where we're not seeing people. We're not getting that body language, that body touch. And that's not going to go away soon. And so companies that are looking to understand this stuff and help their people I'm a great guy and great source to bring this tool to them, have a chat with them. I found truly, you know, that some people were truly having trouble, and I had to talk them through it and get them understanding better, and then follow up with materials to read and everything else, which is all part. I mean, as a coach, it's an ABC for me. Always be coaching, right? And so that comes out of those interviews and works. You know, a little 30-minute piece could make a big difference in somebody's life, and we got to reach out and help each other because it's a tough time, and I think this program can do that. It's a good gap. I don't have to be on site until the workshop type thing, and I actually could probably figure out how to do all of that in Zoom, although I think there's a huge need for human relations and contact when we get to that level of communication. But even when I mentioned emails, on the phone, wherever, these communication things become apparent. You know, each of the different profiles, you can recognize them pretty quickly with just a little bit of training, and improve your relationships and your ability to communicate. Husband and wife things are really interesting in these when I get couples together and we do them together and then go through. Last night I had a really good session with a couple, and they really point, in my case with my wife and I, my wife is a high C, I'm a high I. So she, you can notice on my sign here, there's a little sign that says disinfected. She's very concerned about disinfected because of her high C. This house gets, you know, somebody comes in for a coaching session and oh my gosh, they almost, you know, have to come in with a hazmat suit on. But that's the high C nature, right? I mean, that's the nature of what it is. And so as a couple before, I mean, we were married for years and years, and she would always want to straighten up my collar or make sure I didn't have anything on my, always kind of fuss at me is what I called it. And it annoyed me. I'm going, you know, honey, just let me be me. Well, once we did the DISC profile and we compared, you know, and then I realized she's just being herself. I've got to just love her all the more and let her do it. And so we figured out that the jobs we do and what we do around the house, for example, she checks my PowerPoint presentation before I put them out because she's very into detail. Me, I'm going to throw it out there and go. It's the nature of who I am. And so that's where the DISC has helped me personally, you know, and I love being able to share that with others and the whole idea of using it. But it's more than just, it's a commodity today. I think everybody's pretty much familiar with this. Came about in 1919 from a guy named Marston, who eventually, you'll love this, eventually wrote Wonder Woman. Same guy does Wonder Woman in his later life, but it was industrial psychology was his early studies. And then some other people picked up and got a little tighter in the 50s until eventually it became a solid product, and kind of where it came from in 2008, it became a real apparent. And now, like I say, there's all kinds of versions and so on around. And I use it as a basis because it seems to be well proven, and it can take you quite far quickly, real fast learning. And that's what I'm living for, is the aha moment.
Can I say something about the DISC?
You sure can, E. Speak it up.
Yeah, I also did the DISC with my wife, and it helped her understand what it means to be like an entrepreneur trying to start your own business and the stress that goes through it and every other thing. She's the numbers person. All she wants to see that there's money coming in, and if there's no money coming in and money always going out, it's something. So after the DISC, it gave her an opportunity to really understand what the whole process is, and it also helped me understand what she's also trying to do in terms of trying to make sure that we are okay and we don't run the risk, because if you leave me, I'll use my last money to do something. So the DISC really helped us in terms of working together as a team with me and my wife with different career goals. So that's what I wanted to add.
All right. Well, thanks for sharing that, E. That's great. I mean, I felt the same way. I mean, you know, just getting involved with even that level of just doing the DISC and having the interview with the couple, I'm open to doing that because I'm here to help people. That's what I like to do. All right. So thank you very much for attending. That's a quick overview of the 3 steps to empower your team. I appreciate your attendance, and from the desk of Coach Hess, we'll call her quits. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Be safe on July 4th weekend.
Thanks, Coach.